Welcome to the Masai Mara podcast from the Sacred Nature Initiative. We're delighted to have Niels Mogensen with us today from the Mara Predator Program. Niels, you tell us about yourself. I'm sure some people will have heard about you and the program, but for those who don't, what are you all about and how did you get to be living there in the Masai Mara?
Yeah, thanks, Steve, and thanks for having me on the show. So my name is Nils, and I've been working within the Mara since 2010. And before that, I came to the Mara in 2005 and six, where I did my fieldwork for my degree in biology. And then after that, I knew I had to come back to the Mara, which is my big passion. The Mara and the big cats. So I came back in 2010. I started my own small scale lion project in one of the conservancies that just started. And I was just by myself, so that was quite tough. I had to pay everything or fund all my own activities. So it wasn't sustainable. And then I was very fortunate that Kenya Wildlife Trust, they came along in 2013 and they wanted this large scale lion project and large scale cheetah project. And because they knew me and they knew I was working within the area, they asked if I wanted to join. And for me, that was a no brainer because they had money for a small salary and they had money to cover my fuel costs and so forth. So I joined. And at that time, I joined the Mara Lion Project. And then in 2018, Kenya Wildlife Trust, or KWT for short, they merged the Lion and Cheetah Project into one Mara conservation or Mara predator conservation program. And the reason behind that was because we wanted to, along the way, include more predators and then rename it to a program because it's long term. And that was in 2018. And then is when I became in charge of the research and monitoring side of the program. And so I've been here ever since it started in 2013. And besides the research side of it, we have a quite a big community side, and and they work with obviously the local people, mitigating conflicts, creating awareness, educating, and really are the key to make this whole thing work, right? Because the people are the key, the local people are the key, and if they have negative attitudes and if they don't want predators, then we might as well go home. So it's really important, obviously, to work with them. Um, but like I said, I hit up the research side, and for us, we have some main objectives. And the first one is actually why we started in 2013 is to find out how many lions, cheetahs we have in the Mara ecosystem. And when they started when we started in 2013, no one really knew about the status of lion cheetahs, how many we had, how they were doing, if they were increasing or decreasing, if they're healthy, and so forth. So we set up to make a baseline study where we tried to get this information, which we did. And then every year since that, we are doing these annual surveys. So we update the lion and cheetah numbers or densities in the Mara. So we had this quite a big data set. And I believe it's the only kind of long-term data set using these robust methods that we're using to capture the uh, trends of these predator species or uh, the population trends of the predators. And besides that, we also have objectives that understands how these predators are using at the area in time and space, especially when they leave the protected area. So why are they leaving? What's happening to them? How do we stop them from causing conflict? How do we stop people from retaliating and killing these predators, and so forth? And for that, we use GPS collars. Uh, and when we're out in the field, we collect not only data on predators, but we collect data on livestock, on tourism activities, on prey species, um, and this is all to find out what variables are potentially influencing lions and cheetahs. Um, we've been doing that since 2013. So we have quite a large data set where we can answer a lot of questions. And yeah, so that's basically in a nutshell what we do.
Yeah, cool. And fairly obviously, judging by the canvas around you, you're in the Mara speaking to us as we speak.
Yes, I'm sitting in our information center. So we are at our headquarters, which we call uh, the Predator Hub. And this is our main base. It's situated quite in the middle of the system. And this is from where we do our activities. This is where I spend time behind my computer trying to analyze data and ask questions and publish papers, etc. And when we do more remote kind of monitoring, or the field team, they go camping in different areas. So not to have this massive drive back and forth.
And I think fairly recently you published papers that was highlighting the interactions between predators and cattle. And maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about what the findings of that were.
Yeah, so I've published a couple of papers in recent times, and one of them is looking at how cattle affect lions in these conservancies. So in the Mar conservancies, so maybe just giving a little bit of background. So in the Mar, we have the National Reserve and the Mar Triangle, which are fully protected. And then we have these adjoining Mar conservancies, which are the land is owned by the Maasai, but then leased to tourism operators, so they can have tourism for game viewing, and then part of that money, that income, goes to pay for leasing the land, from the local people. So the local people, they get income every month from leasing land, but they also get a benefit where they are allowed to have their cattle graze during the daytime in the conservancies under a some form of management plan. And all conservancies, they don't have the same plan, so it kind of differs from one conservancy to the other. So I set out to find out, how do these cows grazing legally during the daytime, how does that affect lions? And the short, I mean, in the like in summary, lions, they try to avoid cows, and it's probably because they're associated with herders. So lions in the daytime, they see these herders coming in with their cows. So lions, they avoid them, they move. But not only that, lions avoid areas that have been grazed for longer periods of time. So it's really this displacement. And then you can say, okay, well, that's good, because then you avoid a lot of conflict if the lions move when these cows come in. But if lions are being pushed into areas where you have other lions or other territorial lions, there can be a lot of conflict, lion conflict. Lions can also be pushed into suboptimal habitats, or areas where that's not really good for them to hide and reproduce. So lions, they typically prefer these riparian habitats during the daytime, where they can hide, and there's lots of also potential prey, and where they can produce cubs. But if they are pushed away from those areas into, areas that are not so good for that, then that can also have consequences. So it's all about. So we're not saying that livestock grazing or cattle grazing in the conservancies is a bad thing. We're just saying that it just needs to be managed properly, and doing a proper rotational plan where cows are moved around, and not staying put grazing in an area for longer periods of time.
But if your findings are also that lions avoid those areas even when the cattle have been moved, wouldn't the implication for conservation of predators be quite a serious one in the long run?
Yeah. They even when cattle move away, the lions tend to avoid those areas if they had been grazed for a longer period of time, right? So that's why it's important to have this rotational grazing where cows are not in the same area for longer periods of time, because it's that constant effect of having cows in one area, that lions tend to avoid. Yeah.
And is there any evidence that you put your finger on about population trends? Is it resulting in the conservancies in a decline of lion numbers?
No, actually, the densities in the conservancies are quite high. So we're not. we're not seeing any effect right now, but if it continues the way it is, there might be a potential future effect online, especially if the prey start declining. Because right now the conservancies have a really high density of prey species because they've kind of all been squeezed in from the outside where there's no longer space for them, right? So, um, but the question is, how long will this continue for? Because they are being really hammered by the predators, these prey. So at some point, there might be a chance that the prey are going to decline, and that means the predators will also decline. Yeah. So then you might see an effect of this cattle grazing.
But it does seem, on balance, that the conservancies have been quite a good success story, both for tourism, for the communities, and of course for conservation.
Absolutely, for sure. And these conservancies, in my point of view, are very important for a buffer zone to the national reserve. And if you didn't have these conservancies, you would probably have back-to-back fences all the way down to the reserve, excluding both wildlife and a lot of cattle. But they do, I think, they do also give a kind of a false impression of of the prey situation, for example, because if you go to the conservancies, you see, like I said, lots of prey, right? But that is because, yeah, they've been squeezed from the outside. So on an ecosystem level, you actually see a reduction in prey, prey numbers and densities. Um, so there's nothing outside, and yeah, so they've all been squeezed in, and there's a big competition for grass now, from the prey and the cows. So you have these relatively smaller areas now that are really being um, yeah, hammered by both prey and livestock. So it's the question is, yeah, how long can this continue for in this state?
And how have your research findings been received by the wider stakeholder community?
Um, well, it's been kind of a mix. Uh, yeah, it's been kind of mixed. So a lot of well, some conservative. Well, we start with the conservancy managers. Yeah, some are actually you know see these as something positive, something they can use, something that they can use to change the way they manage their cows. Um, and a lot of people from the outside also think um, it's good. It's a good study, and the findings are something that can be used to change things for the better. But then you have local people who thinks it's actually that's thinks the study is rubbish, right? Because you do have, like I said before, still a good density of lines, so you don't see an immediate effect of lines, and then they don't think that cows cause any issues. But the truth is that there are a lot of cows, and if you ask the conservancy managers and other people, they will tell you that they're struggling trying to reduce the number of cattle in the conservancies because without without rain, like during droughts, the grass gets depleted very quickly, and then you have a lot of cows dying, and then people no longer will follow the rules because they're desperate for grass, and they'll take their cows into areas that they're not supposed to. So it's just this number. It's definitely a matter of numbers. Because the way things are now, in my point of view, it's not sustainable. Uh, so, I mean, we've just been lucky the recent years that we have had a lot of rain, right? So we have had a lot of grass, but as soon as the rain stops, yeah, it doesn't take long before grass gets finished quite quickly.
And of course, human interests and cattle, which is a human interest, tend to get political support rather more readily than wildlife.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's the way of life for the Maasai, right? But because of the situation, yeah, with the rains and the grass, I mean, there's just a potential for having a lot of livestock. But then you can't have in the long term a lot of prey as well, right? And a lot of predators. So it's just not the whole thing. Yeah, it's not sustainable.
Has your research ventured at all into the impact of tourism on predators?
Yeah, so that was. the second study that I did that was also recently published, looking at how tourism facilities affect lions. And the reason behind that study was that the Mara has a lot of tourist camps, and I would say there are way too many tourist camps in the Mara. Um, and this is no secret; everybody can see that. And then, since we started this study, every year you see more and more camps, so it just increases every year. And there's no really thought behind where you put them, how big they are, how close they are together. And camps are often built in areas where lions they like to hide and reproduce. So like I said before, in these riparian habitats. So if you have a nice riparian habitat close to water, that's an ideal place for a camp. Um, but also an ideal place for lions. So the question was, well, how does this or does this affect lions in any way? Having these camps where lions like to stay. And the short answer is yes. So you typically find the highest lion densities in areas where there are no camps. Um, but it's not saying that all camps are bad. It's actually showing that if you have really high density camps, so that's either a very big camp or many small camps put close together, that's what affects lions, and that's where you find lower lion densities. The lions can actually do well with smaller density camps or small or yes, camps that are smaller or spread far apart. Yeah. Um, so here the recommendation is when you do build a camp, just first of all make it small and also make sure that you're not close to anyone else and try to avoid these habitats where lions they thrive. Um, it's because tourism is obviously important for lions and for wildlife in general and for the people. Um, and tourists they need a place to stay. Yeah. So, but it can work, right? If we just think about management of camps and regulations.
I think it's very helpful when you have hard scientific evidence on the ground that can help in the design and layout and management of camps as well as the ecosystem itself. One just hopes that the owners of those camps take heed rather than just bulldoze their way through, as too often the case. What about harassment by vehicles? Have you looked into that at all?
Yes, for not for lions, but we did a study led by one of our former directors, Dr. Femke Brookhouse, where we looked at how mass tourism affects basically how many cubs a cheetah mom can recruit to adulthood or independence. And the reason behind that study was that we saw in the National Reserve, where you have unregulated mass tourism, we saw cheetah moms maybe raising 2, sometimes 3 cubs to independence or adulthood. And in the conservancies where you have regulated tourism, most of them they only allow 5 vehicles per sighting. We saw cheetah moms raising more cubs to independence.
All right.
So we thought it probably had to do with number of vehicles. So we did that study, and in a nutshell, it actually shows quite clearly that there's a very clear negative correlation between number of vehicles or tourism abundance and number of cubs a mother can raise to independence. And we're now trying to dig deeper into that and find out exactly what's happening. What are the tourism? What behavior is it? The behavior of the vehicles? Is it noise? The distance, and so forth. So we're trying to look into this again, just on a much finer scale.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I think it's in everybody's interest that the wildlife is not harassed, but clearly that and for Kenya's and the Masai Mara's own benefit, it generates such negative publicity globally that there needs to be much greater clarity over the need for tour operators and the driver guides to behave themselves and to stick with, like you say, 5 at a time and no more. But it seems to be a struggle to get that to be accepted and even harder to be enforced.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have things change, especially in the National Reserve. So what we can do, we can come up with recommendations based on our findings. It's all based on science, obviously. So produce reports with key findings and recommendations, and then hope that people will listen and change. But I think there's so much money coming into the reserve that yeah, if you start changing things, you might lose out on some revenue. Um, but it's just, I mean, obviously, if you want things to last long term, you're going to have to do something to change it, because otherwise you're going to just see massive decrease in wildlife potentially. And then tourism will also stop coming, right? So, um, but yeah, so obviously after this study, we did write a recommendation report about regulating numbers of tourist cars, and nothing has really seemed to be happening on that front. But we hope things will change at some point.
Yeah, the Narok County claims they have a a management plan that is widely bought into. The question now is how can it be properly implemented and enforced? But we shall see on that one.
Yeah.
So moving forward then,
Yeah.
Niels, what else are you looking at? What other research have you got ongoing?
So right now I'm currently looking at how livestock intrusions into the National Reserve are affecting lion survival. So it's no secret that cattle graze illegally at night in the National Reserve. Everybody knows it. No one denies it. The county doesn't deny it, and it's obvious. You can also, just by driving into the reserve or flying a hot air balloon over the reserve, you can clearly see the cow tracks. Um, when it becomes more dry, you see cows leaving the reserve quite late in the morning. Uh, so yeah, and we also have seen uh, we're losing over the years, been losing some of the healthy adult lion pride females, and that's it's not normal that adult females, healthy adult females in prides, territorial females, they disappear. Um, and we do have a little bit of evidence of herders retaliating at night in the reserve, but it's really difficult to document. So I'm kind of now looking at how um, illegal nighttime grazing, using cattle tracks as a proxy for the grazing, how that is affecting lion survival. So it's kind of complicated lion survival model that I'm using. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and it seems like that there is a big effect on lion survival. So the closer the lions they are to the boundary where you have more cows coming in, the higher mortality. But that is still in the making, and hopefully will be published soon.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate you sharing this with us, Niels. The the multiple perspectives that we've been encouraging to share the views on the podcast suggest that it's still an amazing place, a wonderful place for wildlife and a wonderful place for tourism. But I have to say that it's scientists like yourself who sort of informed the management and the responses. And I guess without your kind of research, things would be an awful lot worse than they are. So we have to sort of raise our hats and thank you and the scientific community for finding things out that are going to drive the future of the Masai Mara, one hopes.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. But it's not only us from the research side. Like I said, we have the community side, right? So they are also super important, and we work obviously close with the community side of the program, and they use a lot of our findings to go out and know where to where to put in more effort on conservation outside these protected areas. Um, so what we find with our collar data, where we find hotspots. That's where they know to go and do more awareness and mitigation and so forth. So it's all working together. Us with the community side, but also us in general with other stakeholders, the authorities, the county managers, and so forth.
Great. Well, good luck with all of that, and many thanks for joining us on the podcast. I'll let you go and count lions if that's what you've got lined up for the rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on the show.